Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to what is, in theory, the final video covering season launches, car launches, livery launches, whatever you want to call them. And today it was the turn of Williams, who pulled the covers off the FW43, and Racing Point as well, who showed off their 2020 livery. And it is very much just going to be a livery reaction today, not too much on the technical side of things. But as they were the first to unveil their car, we will start with Williams. So at about 8 o'clock this morning, Williams unveiled the FW43 in a launch video, which you can see in the background now, as well as renders of their new car. And first impressions of that livery, it is a dramatic improvement on last year's, which quite frankly looked absolutely horrendous in my opinion. Really hated that livery, but I'm loving their 2020 look. I've got to say, the renders which you'll see after that short film, they do not do this livery justice. And once it got out on track for the shakedown, it looked far better. So they've stuck with the blue and white theme from last year, but they haven't got that awful gradient on it, which is fantastic news. But they've also integrated more of the rocket red, if you like, from their sponsorship with them. And obviously that red is there predominantly for the sponsorship. But with the red, white and blue, it does give it a very patriotic feel, doesn't it? I genuinely do like it a lot. Not my favourite, I still prefer the AlphaTauri, but I reckon, this could be a close second for me. And yes, as many have pointed out over on social media, elephant in the room, it does resemble at least one brand of toothpaste, if not two. And I'm sure Williams are loving everybody constantly pointing that one out. So, a very tidy livery, and tidy is also a word I'd use to sum up the look of this car, the design if you like. As I said a moment ago, this is mostly a livery reaction. I'm not going to go too technical, not that I ever did, but you know what I mean. No side-by-sides or anything like that. Mainly because there's not an awful lot to say. Even Williams themselves are saying that this isn't a big change to last year's car. Or at least when it comes to new design concepts. So the team's design director said in the press release that the main concept behind the FW43 was to continue that development from last year, but there are no, and I'll quote him here, fundamental concept changes to the layout. So whilst there has been what he's described as healthy development on the wind tunnel side of things, it looks as though it's been more about improvement on last year's car rather than going absolutely crazy, which is kind of what everybody's done really, isn't it? It's that boring saying again, evolution rather than revolution. But he's talked about things like addressing their mechanical issues, so problems they had with the brakes and the weight of the car, for example. And having gone through that press release, I'm not going to say they are going to write off 2020. I don't think any team will do that completely. But I do wonder if a lot of the decision to focus on improving upon what they had last year, I mean, they can't really go any further backwards, can they? I do wonder if that's more to do with 2021 than anything. Are they already starting to look ahead to next season? Like I say, I don't think they'll write it off. Williams aren't that kind of team. But they, in theory, on paper, whichever way you want to put it, have probably got the best opportunity to make the biggest gains of all the teams. So I fully expect to hear pretty quickly in the 2020 season that they're already looking to 21. I just, from a personal point of view, really want to see them improve in 2020. I'd love to see them get a few more points on the board. I'm not expecting them to challenge anybody else in the championship, really. I probably think they will end up 10th again. But if they can just get closer to that midfield and pick up more points and just get involved in some kind of on-track fight, it's going to be a pretty drastic improvement on most of 2019 for them. And I'm not poking fun at them when I say this, but they are already well ahead of where they were last year. Because a couple of days before 2019 winter testing, there was a lot of talk about how they might not make it to Barcelona on time. And as we know, they didn't turn up until the third day of testing, or at least didn't get on the track until the third day of testing. Whereas this year, they've already been out on track for the shakedown. So they are in Barcelona, and they will be there for the first day of testing. So like I say, already a massive step forward versus last year. Let's hope that carries on into the season. And the second team to launch today were Racing Point. And I say launch, it really wasn't a launch. As expected, it is the 2019 show car with this year's livery on it. So it looks as though we're not going to see their 2020 car proper until Wednesday. First impressions, it's essentially just more pink than last year. Obviously, the big thing to note is that Sport Pacer are no longer their title partner, or their title sponsor, if you like. And looking at the advertising board behind the drivers or behind the car, it doesn't look as though Sport Pacer are involved in any way, shape or form in 2020. So that is really the big takeaway from the launch, but essentially, yeah, it's just more pink. I don't know what else you want me to say on that one. I like it. I do like the pink livery. Not necessarily the colour, but more because it stands out. It's not just another white and blue or white, red and blue or black and white and red livery, if you know what I mean. You're going to see that coming. You're not going to miss it on TV. And really, as I said last year, I definitely prefer that shade of pink to that baby pastel pink they had back in 2017. Otmar Safenauer took a cheeky dig, by the way, at Romain Grosjean during the launch. Not the most thrilling of launches, Ferrari bought us the circus as well as a massive orchestra. We got a fashion show with AlphaTauri, whereas Racing Point, pulled the covers off the car, basically after a lot of talking. But yes, he did take a dig at Romain Grosjean, which won't go down well with Dan, I'm sure, or any Grosjean fans for that matter. But I will read you what he said. He said, sometimes on lap 1 you don't know what's going to happen. Grosjean is still racing, so he might run into you. That is just so uncalled for. But it was quite clearly just a joke, so I don't think he meant anything by that at all. So as well as losing Sport Pacer as their title sponsor and taking on BWT as their title sponsor, the other big takeaway from the day is that they are targeting getting both of their drivers into the points at every single race, and that builds on what they said last week when they're talking about trying to finish in the top 4 again. And this is what I'm getting really excited about. I do think we'll get a much closer championship at the front because they're all going to converge on each other in terms of performance. It's natural when things evolve. But that midfield was so close last year, and we've already heard McLaren, Renault and Racing Point targeting 4th place, and AlphaTauri want to be top 5. It is going to be brilliant. So whatever happens in the championship, if it does all end up being a bit one-sided at the top, we have 100% got the midfield fight to look forward to. Who is going to end up as best of the rest? Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I think it's too close to call. But like the livery because it's just, not much has changed from last year apart from losing that blue, obviously. And although it's a long way off, I do think it's pretty safe to assume that the big changes to the livery for that team will come next year when they are rebranded as Aston Martin. But there is something else that I want to bring up. It is F1 related, but it kind of goes further than that. But their new title sponsor, who of course is now BWT, have said they will build a new water well in Gambia for apparently every single point the team score in 2020. So if nothing else, that's a reason to root for Racing Point in 2020. And finally, super quickly, just something worth mentioning. As I've already gone over, Williams took their car out for a shakedown this morning. McLaren were out on track over the weekend, and we've also seen Haas and Renault take to the track today. The reason I'm bringing this up, they are all just for shakedowns and filming days, by the way, not like early testing or anything. But the reason I'm pointing this out is because we have had our first, if you like, proper photos of the Renault. Obviously, we got those renders of a mock-up car last week. But the only picture at time of recording that has been released by Renault is this black and white one. On the face of it, not really much to talk about, but it is worth mentioning livery-wise that I think it's safe to assume the lighter areas on that car are probably going to be yellow. I know, right? Earth-shattering news. So really just confirmation of what we pretty much already knew from last week, that car will not be all black as it was in the renders that were released. That was it really, and just some recording this. I've seen an article on Planet F1 claiming that Imola have put an application in to replace the Chinese Grand Prix in April. That is pure speculation. It is one report. It probably won't happen, but I just wanted to throw it in there to get a little bit excited because I love that track. But anyway, that's neither here nor there really. That is it for this video, and like I said at the start, for all of the launch videos as well. Which means we are just a couple of days away from the start of pre-season testing and less than a month away from the Australian Grand Prix. Yes, bring it on. As I said on Friday, I will be back on Wednesday live from 8:30 AM UK time with Stuart, aka Chainbear, and we'll be live till 12, and then from 1:30 PM until 5 PM I'll be joined by Dan from F1/E Reviews. And the rest of the testing lineup for the other 5 days is available over on Twitter. So if you are interested in joining us for alternative commentary, chat, live timing, just general waffle, to be honest, like most of my content, then make sure you have subscribed so you don't miss out on any of that. In the meantime, though, you can follow me over on social media, and all of the links you need are in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.